Honor everyone, honor everyone that's watching, honor to everyone that's joining the chat, honor to you all. Just setting up. Give me 1 second here. Before we start, let me state my disclaimer. All rights and liberties reserved. I am full:_X-TV. I am an Ahuak American, what you call an Arawak American from the American island of Jamaica. I am an original American. With that being said, I say peace, love, light to you all. Peace and love to everyone that's joining. Peace and love to everyone that's watching. Hope you all have had a wonderful weekend that passed. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. You know, doesn't matter the time zone that you are in, whether you're in Eastern time, Western time, you know, wherever in the world you are. Give me a second here, y'all. I'm trying to pull up my YouTube screen, but it's not showing on my laptop. Let me hit the screen share though. I guess I hit the screen share for everyone. Okay. See, it's not showing my screen, which is crazy. Yeah, my screen isn't coming up. So now I'm gonna have to close this back out. Back here. Should be up here. Okay, here we go. There we go. All right. But that's not what I want. Desktop. I want to be able to see the chat at the same time. All right, let's see. Let's see if it comes up now. Oh, wow. Now it comes up, right? All right, so here we go. The things we got to do. All right, if it sounds like I'm losing my voice, I had a wonderful weekend. Just gonna leave it at that. I had a wonderful weekend. You know what I mean? So yeah. All right, so I was watching a video on one of the platforms that I do follow, which is called Soulflow TV, right? And he was touching on a subject about the weaponizing of HIV, right? Because I don't know if folks know this. They have a U.S. military ship, a U.S. military hospital ship that's going around in the islands talking about they're given free health care, right? And you know, they don't have free health care here on the mainland. They don't have free health care in anywhere in the Americas. So to be going around, they're going around to the islands that has the more darker view people populated. That's where they're going around talking about they're giving free vaccines and all sorts of this and that and surgeries on the ship. Okay. Mind you, the islands that they're going to are not islands that are bankrupt that are bankrupt. These are islands that have made major investments. These are islands whose government has pulled in a hell of a lot of money that can upgrade the hospitals if they so choose to, but they choose not to. Okay, these are islands that their government can um can build infrastructure for the people to where no one has to come underneath the guise of as a false good Samaritan, acting like they're really giving out um vaccinated shots to cure some form of disease or ailments that might be going around, which we know with the history of um genetic warfare that has been taking place on the American Indian, right? The Tuskegee Experiment, when they pumped HIV within the American Indian community that they wrongfully called African Americans. Okay, what? Yellow cabs are picking up more passengers. Be aware. No. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. Let me let me pull his platform up. All right. Okay, there's a video that he plays that I want you guys to see on there, and then we're gonna get into it. Ooh, uh, I got a major headache. Major headache. Here we go. That's the video. So fear. I say fair use. Fair use. This is from Soul Flow TV. All right. Say honor to everyone that's in the chat. Honor to everyone that's watching. Makadon 1, honor to you. Honor. Mr. Tyrese 21, Sean Allen, Sonny Roundtree, Bill Hampton, Selena Morel, Ron Jones, Tim Buck, son of Papoose. Honor to you. Knowing American Opulence. Honor to you. Mr. Brian, what's that? Brian Shee. Honor to you. All right. Let's get into this. Let me unmute this real quick. Uh, all of a sudden now it's not going to connect. To be shut down. Okay, so they had no intention. All right, so let me back it up for you guys so that it could go to the video. First, we want to see to how it starts off. So we're gonna play about a good 2 minutes or so. 2 minutes, about 2 minutes of this video, of this right here. You know how we do already over here, so balance the scales and leave the decision to you. All right, that's what we're gonna do. First, let's start off with this voice note. This voice note was put out there among many other voice notes I've heard about. 4 of them warning the people. You know, sometimes people don't. What I'm going to do know what I'm talking about, and sometimes they do know what they're talking about. Here's what I'm going to do, because I'm going to show you why people are. I'm going to mute it, right? I'm going to mute it, and I'm going to play the volume from my phone, right? Because what they're doing is they're tethering the internet, so they're slowing up the feed. That's why you see it keep buffering and buffering and buffering. So they're slowing up the feed. So I'm just going to play it from my phone so you guys can hear it real clear, right? So give me 1 second. And that ship is acting as a hospital. So it's known as a floating. Let's start off with the voice one. It says, again, everybody. It's your host with the most. With no further ado, listen, there's a USA military ship that's in Jamaica right now as we speak. And that ship is acting as a hospital. So it's known as a floating hospital, the biggest one in the world. People are being very scared, okay? People are afraid right now because, and they have right to be. I'm going to show you a couple of things here, and I'm going to leave the rest for you to decide. I'm not going to tell people to go. I'm not going to tell people not to go. You know, so and leave the decision to you. All right? That's what we're going to do. First, let's start off with this voice note. This voice note was put out there among many other voice notes I've heard, about 4 of them, warning the people. You know, sometimes people don't really know what I'm going to talk about, and sometimes they do know what they're talking about. I'm going to show you why people are probably scared, and so on and so forth. So, here's the voice note.
Shanika, me tell you this. My ship leave America, so they must come to Jamaica, come get free medical. Me say watch it a doc. Me say it reach already. None of spread it in your contact. None of go down there go take no free medical from them. I kill them come to kill off black people for the planet, and them go every black country, Caribbean country to kill off people. America don't give a free healthcare up here. So I know America left America come to Jamaica, come give a free medical down here. The plan is to eliminate we off of the planet. Please may I ask to spread it to everybody. Don't take it. No, see nobody are coming and go no medical, nothing. Don't take it. Me I tell you, no take no pill, no medicine, nothing to do with no medical wise and carry on the yard and consume it, cause they do not go there, Please spread it out in your contact and tell everybody down as far as we have in your contact and spread it out. That's the people that beware and not take it. Jesus God Almighty.
Alright. And that was the voice note, right? That was one of the voice notes, and I'm not going to play all of them because all of them pretty much are saying the same thing. Be aware, don't go because they have ulterior motives, and in a sense, they are right. But let me show you some more things. We're going to talk about the Tuskegee Experiment because people are saying, Chuck, I'm afraid I want to have nothing to afraid about. Right? And I want you to know that I am not here to say people don't have no right. Okay? People have the right to fear. I want you to hear this. This video is 3 minutes and 32 seconds long. So if you can't spare 3 minutes and 32 seconds of your life, when your life depends on it, then it's your business that. Alright? Hear this.
How many people did it involve, Simon?
Anything from 5,000 people upwards.
That many?
That many. So Simon was a big organization.
And operations were you doing?
Well, the clandestine operations, we were involved in coups, taking over countries for other leaders. We were involved in Mozambique, spreading the AIDS virus through medical conditions. We were involved in Angola with Dr. Jonas Savambi for various operations. We got military support.
So, people were killed during these operations?
Oh, definitely. We existed.
Can I just do the question and then you can come in?
Yeah.
You mentioned actively.
There was a unit in from Simon that one of the things was that we went into African countries.
And how was that done exactly?
Through inoculation.
Through vaccines?
Yeah, through vaccines. Pretending to inoculate people and that type of thing.
The idea being to kill black people?
Yeah, to eradicate black people. The concept was that AIDS was a killer. It was incurable at that point in time. So it was led to believe that if infected people, it was the quick, non-militaristic approach to eliminate black people.
And that is something you know for a fact that AIDS was actually being spread to other countries?
Yes. To African countries. We went home. Black people in South Africa were the enemy.
But so it was about white supremacy?
Definitely.
All right, so I want to pause it right there, right? Because you heard what he said. He said we were at war. Black people in South Africa were the enemy. So this is what happens when the opposition is not winning the war. When it's a physical conflict and they're not winning the physical conflict, right? They turn to other means. So what they did was they created the HIV virus. They created the HIV virus in the United States. We're not going to say America. They created it in the United States Incorporated. They created the HIV virus. They took it from the United States Incorporated and they spread it throughout South Africa as a what they call it, a pandemic, right? And when they spread it throughout South Africa, it was now you had the people dying from this HIV virus, right? From this disease. And not only are they dying from the disease, now you don't have the manpower to defend South Africa how they're supposed to defend South Africa, because now they fight in two wars. They fight in the war of the colonizers, and then they fight in the war on disease that's spreading throughout their communities. So these people are backed into a corner. This is how colonization takes place. This is how you wipe out a set of people to steal their land. Okay? This is how. Now let's continue playing it. That's why he said we were at war.
Definitely trying to retain the white supremacy on the African continent.
And furthermore, he tells us that the purpose of Maxwell's clinics in and around Johannesburg was to infect black people with HIV.
He had the one in Mucosa, he had the one in Alex.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, that was on the on the West End. So, and these were research facilities for them to inject people with a solution to see that they prevented AIDS, and in the meantime they were injecting people with AIDS.
And he was only working on black people in these clinics.
Yes, yeah.
For almost.
But that's what I'm saying. So you know what I mean? What easier way to get a big guinea pig that you live in an apartheid system? Black people have got no rights. They need medical treatment. There's a.
Now, you hear what he said? He said black people have no rights. Again, this is why I say to you guys, why do you let your pro-black leaders call you black all day, every day, right? But when you look on their documentations don't mark them as black. It don't mark them as black. They don't identify as black because those pro-black leaders, like the Sharptons, the Jesse Jacksons, the Farrakhan's, down to even Pharaoh, they know that at law, black means civilis mortuus. It means dead. And a dead person don't have any rights because the person is dead. So you don't have no rights. What you need rights for? You're dead. You see what I'm saying? So this is when he's saying a black person don't have rights. That's what he's talking about. You notice he didn't say, well, this tribe don't have rights, right? This nationality of a people don't have rights. He said black people don't have rights. And we know when you go over into Africa, can identify themselves as their nationality. But these folks got even the government to start calling these people black. And again, black by law all over the world means civilis mortuus. It means dead. Okay? So when you're going to war with a dead entity, you're warring with a dead entity. No one is correcting them and saying, don't call us black. No one was correcting them and saying any of these things. Okay? So it is behind these doctrines, behind these words, behind these supposed lawful definitions is what they hide behind when they're committing their atrocious acts. It is these things that they use as an excuse, as the scapegoat, to get away with a lot of the stuff that they did, because they're going to say, well, by law, so and so by law means that it's dead end. If it's all caps, and this is what they're doing behind closed doors, behind the scenes. You see what I'm saying? And they have their puppets out there in the pro-black community, who are out there to get you to continue to identify as something that means dead at law every single day, taking you away from your nationality. African American and Black are not nationalities. African American and Black means civilis mortuus, means dead at law. Black people and African American don't have ties to any land. So because you don't have ties to any land, these people are going to come in and swoop and take it. Why? Because they got you to start identifying as Black. Okay? Let's keep going.
White philanthropist coming in and say, I'll open up these clinics and I'll treat you, I will do this, and meantime you actually the wolf in sheep's clothing. It's gross. Okay.
All right, so
that's part 2 of what I wanted to show you. Like I said before, I'm not here to convince you to go take treatment from.
We're gonna stop there right there. We're going to get into our stuff now. So I got my info up, and that I want to show and share with you guys. Right? Give me 1 second here. Let me fix back my phone settings.
Give me 1 second here.
Okay. All right. Kirk Sarah, honor. Davida Carter, honor to you. Miss Nia, honor to you. Cherokee Toulouse, sis, honor to you. Sister Mayan Son, honor. All right. Let me go into my docs. One second, y'all. We're also going to get into the original patient zero. And they always talk about these diseases, and they always bring it back to a patient zero, the original source of the disease. We're going to show you why they experiment on Negroid people, on Negroes, right? We're going to show you why they experiment on us. And again, it's for your genetics. They need your genetics. They need it. They need your genetics to cure their leprosy, because they're filled with leprosy. If you segregate from them for a year, and this whole thing is so messed up, right? Because when you go back in history, when you go back to what happened to us here in the Americas, you'll see that there were about 10 tribes that teamed up and signed. Well, not signed, because I haven't seen any that signed anything. There are 10 tribes that are said to had treated with the colonizers, and those 10 tribes sold out thousands of other tribes all over the Americas, North, South, Central America. Okay, and even the tribes that were a part of the Iroquois Confederacy, there were a couple of those tribes that was forced to join the Iroquois Confederacy. I'm going to repeat that again. They were forced to join the Iroquois Confederacy. So you have these tribes that teamed up with the colonizers to enslave the masses of the Indians, okay? To enslave you mentally, to enslave you physically, to enslave you spiritually, while they kept their resources and their knowledge. All right? And the colonizers that they teamed up with turned around and flipped the script on them also and betrayed them and backstabbed them. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is this. Dark-skinned people all over the world are the most hated people. Dark-skinned and brown-skinned people. We are the most hated people by all other ethnic groups or nationalities out there, right? And the Arab, the Caucasian, the pink-skinned Asian, the coolie that they call Hindu, right? These folks, not saying, oh, man, I don't care how people want to take it. This is for original Americans. These folks don't like us, okay? And it is a thing where they want what you have or what was passed down to you. Not only is it the genetics, but it is the inheritance of the land, the most fertile lands. Okay? They will do anything to get you up off of the land. They'll do anything to steal your genetics. All right? Because your genetics can cure their imperfections. Okay? And I've said it before. I'm going to say it again because there's some clips, video clips that I'm going to show you, right? That's going to prove what I'm saying. Okay? And we're just going to let these things come from the horse's mouth. Because when you check out the history of HIV, it was more widely spread against Negro people than anybody else all over the world. Now, when these folks also created HIV, they created it to also wipe out the homosexual population, to be honest. We just didn't know that we had dirty, nasty, down low brothers from the community dabbing within that, dibbling and dabbing in that community. Okay? That's why HIV was more so widely spread amongst the Caucasian homosexual population at first. And the reason being why they wanted to wipe out the Caucasian homosexual population at first, because they weren't procreating. Okay? Back then, they weren't procreating. They weren't bringing any children in the world. And that's their whole goal, is to bring children in, their children in the world, to take the spots of our children. All right? All right, so this is an article from finalcall.com. Okay. Now, when you start reading some of these articles and you start reading some of these medical dictionaries, you'll see how easy it is to cure HIV. And that how wicked these people are that push the disease out there, and how they know who created HIV, and how the courts didn't even want to push the case to do any form of investigation within the origin of HIV, because all these years they've been giving folks medication for the symptoms. They haven't been giving folks medication for the origin, for what causes the symptoms, the root cause of HIV. God damn it, anybody can treat a symptom, but get to the root cause of where in the body does it replicate the most. Why does it replicate the most in that portion, in that section of the body? And Dr. Sebi done gave us the main clue before he died. He told you it's about the mucus in the body, which we're going to get to in some of these articles. But let's read through this article here. This one is a lengthy article, but we're going to... Why is it freezing? All right, so they're really messing with my internet. They have this thing keep loading over and over, and it's not supposed to be loading over and over. All right, here we go. So this is from Final Call. AIDS is a man-made interview. AIDS is man-made. Interview with Dr. Boyd Graves, right? So this man has a whole book out there also on this. After beginning his research on the AIDS pandemic in 1992, Dr. Boyd Graves discovered in February 1999 the greatest evidence to date of records and reports of the experiments that led to the development of what the world now knows as the AIDS virus. Pretty much this man was tracking it back to its origin. The document is the 1971 flowchart of the Special Virus Program of the United States. Dr. Graves submitted this flowchart as evidence to the Sixth Circuit Federal Court in a case which named the President of the United States as a defendant to answer a petition acknowledging the authenticity of the flowchart. On January 12, 2001, the case was dismissed as frivolous. Of course, they're going to do that. Like I told you, these folks are fraternal and sorority brothers and sisters. They're going to look out for each other no matter what. Okay? Who can't hear? If you guys can hear me, press 1. Press 1 if you guys can hear me. And it works. It's working. So the flow chart. So back to the flow chart. So 2001, the case was dismissed as frivolous and then referred to the district's appellate court, which ruled in favor of the lower court. Eventually, it went to the Supreme Court, which refused to hear it without giving comment as to why. So pretty much these courts are just like, F you, we're not going to let this go anywhere. Even though you have evidence, we don't even want to hear your argument to why you're bringing this to the forefront. We're just going to shut it down. Okay? That's a system that has something to hide. If you're shutting something down before the person can even come into the courtroom to even give their evidence or to the reason to why they're doing this, then you're hiding something. Who are you protecting? And now this shows that there is a conspiracy, if you want to call it that, to wipe out Negroes all over the world, which again, it's not hard to see. You see it again, and I refer back to Hawaii. Where are the Negroid Hawaiians today? Where are they? You don't even see them. You see the ones who are 5%, 10%, 1% of the blood that are claiming to be Hawaiians today, who are now claiming the entire Hawaii, all the Hawaiian islands. Okay, and when you watch them break down their history, they don't even want to mention that they come from the dark of you people that originally ran those lands. They're afraid to mention that. So when you put in mind of people like that, with that sort of mindset, and the colonizers and the people who are mixed with the colonizer blood that hate their dark of you counterparts, these people have a massive conspiracy to wipe you out, to take your place in history. This is what it is. Give me a sec, y'all. Let me drink some water. Right, so you go back to the Tuskegee Experiment, when they were experimenting on, and look who they experimented on to show you how the shit was just so methodical. They experimented on the Negro farmers during the Tuskegee Experiment. The men who were in charge of the farmland that of which you were getting your food from. The men whom even the Caucasians was buying food from their farms. These were the people that they did the Tuskegee Experiment on. And instead of giving them the penicillin shots that they were supposed to give them to cure the syphilis that they were injecting them with, they were giving them the dummy down version of pills that they knew for a fact wasn't going to do anything, because they were watching them to see how far the experiment was going to progress that they were doing to them. Nothing has changed to this very day. You have 90, and I said it already before, we have over 90% of the population in the Americas that has the herpes virus. And people can say, well, I've been tested, I don't have it. But the thing is that the count could be so low that the test don't pick it up. And if you end up being stressed out in your life, it will show up. It will flare up out of the blue. The older you get, the chances are it's going to start flaring up if you reach in stressful situations. Okay? And out of that 97%, when you look at the percentage of Negroes in that 97% that has that virus, you'll see that majority of the folks that has it are folks whom they call African Americans. Okay, I am of the notion, or it is my opinion, that you receive this through their vaccinations that they give you. Your child, you receive at least 67 vaccinations by the time they reach about 6 months to 9 months. Right? And even in the video, Soulflow was telling his experience of when he joined the military, and before he went to basic training, family members and friends was telling him, don't let them inject you with anything, because this is how they mess the soldiers up, right? Do not take their vaccinations. And he was like, when he joined, by the time he knew it, they was telling him drop his pants. They was injecting him in his ass cheek. They was injecting him in his arm, in his other arm. In one day, he got over 4 injections already in one day. Okay. This is also how they experiment on the soldiers in the military. We sit here and we know the history, and yet still we sit back and let the supposed Congress and the supposed Senate run amok and don't punish none of these folks whom are their brethren, whom are committing these atrocious acts. And everyone sits back and complains, roll their eyes, shake their fist, but there's no action. Why? Because you don't know that you're the one that really has the authority, the power to make shit happen. But because, again, you weren't taught that. You were taught the way of being the sheep instead of being the wolf. I'll be the wolf any day than a sheep. So you become submissive. They tell you, it was just one out of many. It was just one out of the many that was doing this act, and you believe it. Oh, we're going to punish that one. And that one gets a slap on the wrist. Right? Not knowing that one can't make a move without your members of your Senate and your Congress, or whom you call your President of the United States Incorporated. Okay? Well, you know that HIV was a military warfare weapon. You know that it was created because it's on the public record. It was created in the United States. HIV. The components that create today what you call HIV came from the United States military. No one holds this military accountable to the fact that the virus that we now call HIV, because they try to disguise it and call it cancer. And a lot of that shit went over people's head. Because in the old articles, they called it cancer and it was really HIV, right? So that's why people was like, oh, it's not HIV, that's cancer. No, it was HIV, and they just threw in cancer in there to throw your ass off in the articles. Okay? So now you know that it is the United States military that created HIV. Where's the outcry? Where's the accountability for the scientists that created this shit? How did it get out in the public? Then look, they created the CDC in Atlanta in 1946. 1946, the CDC was created in Atlanta. 1946. The AIDS pandemic didn't even hit Atlanta at the time like that. Before the CDC was created. After the CDC was created, the AIDS pandemic blew up in Atlanta afterwards. So you create the CDC in 1946, right? You created the CDC in 1946. The folks in Atlanta didn't have HIV, right? They didn't have AIDS. Okay? These stuff wasn't just flying around in Atlanta at the time. It didn't exist. But now after the Center for Disease Control was created, HIV started to be spreaded all throughout the South. Now it's becoming a pandemic now in the islands now. And I tell these people are injecting you with these viruses. And because people in the islands are used to being disease free for the most part, the most thing they'll probably get is what they call gonorrhea, and they know how to cure that shit quick, fast, right? To be honest. So, cancer, HIV, herpes, these things were not in the South. These things were not in the islands in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. 80s is when it started getting kicked in. Right around the time they threw in the crack pandemic on you, they threw the AIDS pandemic on you around 1981. Around that time, that's where it picked up within the Negro communities. Okay? People have to pay attention to what's going on. Right now, I look at everything. I look at 99% of what I watch on the mainstream as fake news. Even when they're showing these supposed police shootings and shit like that, I look at it as fake news. Because learning what I'm learning now, right? And researching the things that I research, you'll be surprised when you go and you study these people background that are playing parts in these police abuse cases and stuff like that. You look, like I said, you look and see if they're pledges. If they pledge to a certain sorority or a certain fraternity, and then you run through their history and see how much of these people are part of the same sororities and fraternities, and it can't be a goddamn coincidence. A lot of this stuff is straight acting to keep you distracted from these topics right here that I'm touching on right now. Okay? When you start doing your studies about HIV, it tells you that it replicates itself within the mucus of the body. Within the mucus. It is a disease that stays within the mucous lining, also on the arteries. That's the cold, the phlegm that you cough up when you have the common cold. That's what that is. So now when you start reading that and you start understanding that, you'll understand why it is that in 1 year, remember in 1 year, about 2 years ago, they killed over 172 holistic doctors. Okay. Then you realize that, oh shit, well, there's 7 layers of a certain form of tissue when in the body that you have to break down the mucus from to detox all that out of the body. There's certain type of herbs and greens plants out there that detoxifies the blood, because you have to detoxify the blood and also and also break down that mucus within the body, that mucoid plaque that that people push out of the body, okay, when they're doing a proper detox. This is why when Charlie Sheen, if folks remember, when he came on Dr. Oz, he said he went to Mexico and tracked down this Mexican doctor. The doctor gave him a blood transfusion and a detox, because you have to detoxify the blood. You have to flush out the poisonous blood and pumping on clean blood while detoxifying the body, while breaking down the mucus, because the mucus is where diseases live in the body, all diseases. So this is to show you that these motherfuckers been had the cure for years for something that they created. Ben had it and withheld it back to this very day, because they made trillions of dollars off of it. Okay. So if HIV replicates itself through mucus, right, in the place of the body where a majority of the mucus lies within the body, that's the same that goes for herpes. That's the same that goes for a lot of these sexually transmitted diseases out there. Okay. Now we're gonna finish reading through this, and then we're gonna hopefully they let some of these videos play, right? Because there's an article where they're speaking of patient zero. Patient zero was a Caucasian male, right? Whom was the first patient that came forth that had HIV, and the person lived in San Francisco. It was a homosexual Caucasian male. Okay. And then I call this the other patient Hope, where this patient was a Negro patient that they claim received HIV, but his immune system was more built his immune system built up a more resistance towards the virus than any of the Caucasian people that they tested their immune system on. Okay. So here we go back. So this was a doctor here that tracked down the pattern of the virus and literally found out everything needed to be known about the virus, and the fact that he's the one that put it out on the forefront of how in depth of a man-made virus it was. Okay. Now, another thing, yeah, the ions within your body is also altered by the HIV virus. Not only does the HIV virus alters the ions within the body, so does thunderstorms. Hurricanes alters the ions in the negroid body also as well. Okay? Now, unnatural storms alters the ions in a negative way in the body. Okay? Natural storms alters the ions in the body in a positive way, meaning that it alters the ions in a way where it is more enriching to the body. It is more befitting for the body. Okay? When you have a man-made storm, like a man-made hurricane, these things, which is unnatural, it alters the body it has a negative effect on the body with the ions. Okay? So this is why these people also do weather warfare and It just so happens that these man-made storms don't be hitting these Caucasian areas. It always hits the Negro areas. Anyway, let's keep going into this. So it says, he created a flow chart. On January 12, 2001, the case was dismissed as frivolous and then referred to the district's appellate court, which ruled in favor of the lower court. Of course, that's their fraternal brothers and sisters, so they're gonna protect them. Eventually, it went to the Supreme Court, which refused to hear it without giving comments as to why, which is strange because the Supreme Court usually tells you why they don't take on the case. Dr. Graves spoke with final call contributor Sultan Muhammad to explain the significance and consequence of his research. So this was an interview that they did, right? So this is Sultan Muhammad here. What is the flow chart and what does it indicate? So this is Sultan Muhammad interviewing Boyd, right? So Dr. Boyd says the 1971 flow chart is a blueprint for the development of AIDS. It is the quintessential missing link document which provides absolute proof of the U.S. origin of HIV and or AIDS. It is located in one of the 15 progress reports of the federal program entitled the U.S. Special Virus Cancer Program. So they called it a cancer program instead of AIDS or HIV to throw you off. I believe the term cancer was a misnomer to misdirect the actuality of the HIV development. It provides, again, absolute evidence of the U.S. origin of HIV as a synthetic biological agent. We are currently bringing the lawsuit again with respect to the origin of AIDS and or U.S. manufacturer of AIDS vis-a-vis through a federal complaint which we now have pending in the San Diego federal court. You don't hear people talking about this lawsuit. You don't hear people talking about this man even attempting this lawsuit. Okay? This is why, man, like the mainstream stuff, man, a lot of this stuff is false flag stuff to keep you distracted from these news right here. This is real news right here. Sultan Muhammad. There have been several other researchers who have said what you have said. However, your research appears to be most specific and the most conclusive evidence. Why? Dr. Boyd, I believe what you will find with some of the world scientists and medical doctors who have involved themselves in this issue is they have only taken it so far. I believe, maybe out of fear, I also believe that some of them may indeed be a part of the problem as it relates to a blown cover that lets some of the air out of the bag, but not all of the air out of the bag. So he's letting you know that, some of these doctors are behind this cover up. They're corrupt. You see what I'm saying? They're corrupt. That big money check, that big check. That's what they only think about. Okay. However, any cursory review of the U.S. Special Virus Program, the 15 progress reports would show conclusively that indeed HIV is synthetic. It has been developed over a number of years and it has an affinity for people of color. But the research here as reflected on my website, which is bodygraves.com, is as extensive as I can possibly make it, so the other people can see the totality of the other side of this of the development of this agent. Sultan Muhammad. When you say affinity to people of color, how is it directed? Dr. Graves. What the science and medical evidence concludes is the HIV enzyme seeks out a receptor site in the blood of the black genome. The receptor site is the CCR5 delta 32 plus positive gene that all people of color have. In the same sense, on the other end of the spectrum is the 15% Caucasian population of the world, 15% minority, which is CCR5 delta negative 32 negative gene, right? That means that under no circumstance, whether HIV came through the air, intravenous drug usage, or any form of the sexual activity, would the virus be transferable in this sector of the world's population, which is basically of Northern European descent. Now, how many of us still to this very day, because these folks in in what we now call European countries, they be having videos out there with people just having sex in the public street, on buses, all this stuff without any form of condom. They promote orgies out there, right? When we talk about Amsterdam, right? When they're going out to Europe and they're not using any form of protection. You hear what this man just is telling you? That the virus was created to target your genetics, which is different from theirs. That it wasn't created to target their genetics. This is why they still felt so comfortable to go out there in Europe to have sex without any form of a condom or anything. Now, this was created to target your genetics to stop you from procreating. Okay? To give them that fighting chance to build their population up, because again, they are 15% of the world's population then. And this right here, this article is in was going back to 2001. Okay. So it says, let's read back this part. It says, so Dr. Graves is saying, what the science and medical evidence concludes is that the HIV enzyme seeks out a receptor site in the blood of the black genome, right? The receptor, we ain't gonna call it black genome, of the melanated genome. The receptor site is the CCR5 delta 32 positive gene that all people of color have. In the same sense, on the other end of the spectrum. Now, when he said all people of color, it's my opinion that it's speaking of all people of color in the Americas, because I don't remember anywhere in this that it said that this man went over to Africa and tested their genome over there. Okay, but anyway, so it says is the 15% of Caucasian. So it says all people of color have. In the same sense, on the other end of the spectrum is the 15% Caucasian population of the world, which is CCR5 delta 32 negative gene. That means that under no circumstances, whether HIV came through the air, intravenous drug usage, or any form of the sexual activity, would the virus be transferable in this sector of the world's population, which is basically of Northern European descent? Right? So basically, he's letting you know that the virus was created so that it can be spread more easily throughout our communities, throughout our blood, than the Caucasian communities in the Caucasian bloodline. Okay. Oh, my head is pounding. It is speculated by some experts that in a worst case scenario, 85% of the world's population could potentially perish under these designer viruses and designer synthetic biological agents. What we're looking at here, because of this identified gene of the black genome, of the melanated genome, this CCR5 delta 32 positive, we are potentially looking at the eradication of all people of color. Now, you see, this is why I used to say earlier on my channel that you can't expect to get any form of leeway in this fight that you are doing, or any form of advance in this fight that we are doing, until we also clean house, because we have Negroes in our house that should be kicked out of our house, because these Negroes don't believe in replicating Negroid people. They believe also in wiping out Negroid people. Thus, these Negroes marry in the other species and believing that their children is supposed to replicate within the other species. And these are your fraternal and sorority Negroes. We're not saying all of them. So if you feel offended by what I'm saying, and that stone is thrown, and you holler and it hits, then you got a guilty conscience. But if you know that's not you, don't take it to heart. Right? It's not hard to spot these people. These people make it their point of view to always try to live in Caucasian communities when they come out of these colleges and stuff. Okay? There's plenty of Negro communities that is quiet, very upscale, okay? Very outstanding communities. I've been in some. I've seen some. And it blew my mind because I'm from the hood. It blew my mind. So if what people are calling warfare, right? If you believe you're at war, you're first at war with the ones that look like you, because they're the ones that's keeping the door open for those that don't look like you to wipe you out. Because those ones have self-hate. Okay. It is speculated by some experts that in a worst case scenario, 85% of the world's population could potentially perish under this designer virus and designer synthetic biological agents. What we're looking at here, because of this identified gene of black genome, this CCR5 delta 32 positive, we are potentially looking at the eradication of all people of color. Sultan Muhammad, your statement reminds me of the year 1932 when Mr. Prescott Bush, the grandfather of the current president, convened the first international eugenics conference here in America. I understand this year was significant for other reasons. Could you explain? Dr. Graves, many of us aware that the Tuskegee Experiment, where black sharecroppers, the black farmers, were injected intentionally with syphilis for the purpose of infiltrating syphilis into the black genome. Some 60 years later, we could then say that black people are scurrilous, syphilis runs rampant throughout black people, and therefore they are someone to be placed in a secondary capacity that is particularly in line with the eugenics program where white births are encouraged and black births are discouraged. Now you see it in the movies every day. Like I said, like I shared a post and on YouTube, try to block it. Batwoman, they've turned Batwoman into a lesbian female. So Batwoman in the new series of Batwoman, she's a lesbian, a Caucasian lesbian whose girlfriend is a Negro, a person of what they call color, right? Now that person of color, right, is no longer with the Caucasian woman, but ends up marrying the Caucasian male. Like again, they don't want to see you replicating with each other. It's all about wiping you out so that they could control the world stage of history. Because when they go back in history and say, well, who created this? And who are the people that built these pyramids? It always goes back to a Negro face. This is all about land and jealousy. Land and jealousy. Okay. So here, let's read this back. Dr. Graves. Many of us are aware that the Tuskegee Experiment, where black sharecroppers were injected intentionally with syphilis for the purpose of infiltrating syphilis into the melanated genome. Some 60 years later, we could then say that black people are scurrilous. Syphilis runs rampant throughout black people, and therefore they are someone to be placed in a secondary capacity. That is particularly in line with the eugenics program, where white births are encouraged and black births are discouraged. In 1932, the infectious agent of HIV was first tested on sheep in Iceland. Iceland is also in America, folks don't know. In 1932, the infectious agent of HIV was first tested on sheep in Iceland. The agent is called Visna, right? Visna. In 1932, in conjunction with the Tuskegee syphilis program, they were testing the infectious agent of HIV on an island nation. We have Visna as 30% of the sequence of the HIV here today. So 1932 not only is significant for the start of a push for eugenics, i.e. a white birth order, but also the start of the testing of the infectious agents of HIV and AIDS. So they're saying that they were using that to target the Negro population from 1932. So that means Iceland also had a strong Negro population in 1932 also as well that was wiped out. Brought before the federal court. Dr. Graves, September of 1998 was the first legal action on this issue. And that was even prior to the discovery of the flowchart, which was not until February 1999. We brought this case in the federal court for the purpose of providing and showing the evidence overwhelmingly suggests and concludes that HIV is synthetic. It is. I saw that just chipped out, y'all, so I think they're probably trying to cut the feed. Anyway, it is also supported in the congressional records, in particular, House Resolution 15090, The original lawsuit was rejected as the basis that the synthetic origin of AIDS was a frivolous issue. This matter went all the way to the Supreme Court. Okay, so they're saying that it's frivolous, that they don't need to know the origin of HIV. They don't need to know where it was created, who created it. That's not important. That's what they're saying when they're saying that it was a frivolous issue. They're not saying that HIV is not man-made. They're just saying that we don't want to be bothered with it because it doesn't take precedent. It's not priority of something to know. Okay? So here we go. We are currently bringing the lawsuit again. See, this is what, if people are going to focus on something, this is the shit that people should be focusing on. Because there's proof on top of proof on top of proof on top of proof through their documentaries of how these diseases were spread throughout our communities. And these Negroes think, oh, they're wiping us out because we're Africans. No, they're not. All you got to do is take your ass back to Africa. They're wiping you out because you are the original Americans of America, and that the whole fight of the world population is for land. It is for land and a place in history, in the past, present, and future. Okay? And because everywhere these people dig up, they find you here, they made sure created certain organizations to push an African American identity on you, a Black identity on you, a Nation of Islam identity on you, all sorts of different identities on you, taking you away from the natural self. Okay? When you're taken away from the natural self, you're taken away from the land which is your inheritance. So now you no longer have no ties to the land. All right, so back to this. We are currently bringing the lawsuit again with respect to the origin of AIDS and or U.S. manufacturer of AIDS vis through a federal complaint, which we now have pending in the San Diego federal court. This case is with respect to a police kidnapping of me last July, where I was beaten and injected with something and discarded by the police. Wow. However, their records show that I was never arrested. Wow. It's something similar like when I was going through my case. When I went to the courthouse, they couldn't find me in their system. That court officer, that court recorder was like, I don't see him in here. Oh, no, he's not there. They didn't have me in their system. People think it's a game out here. It's not a game out here. This issue there is that I was making irrational statements that the federal government made AIDS, as the experts can clearly show. My statements are not irrational. My website indicates that I have some 30 scientists and medical doctors who have posted their conclusion on my research, and for that I am grateful. Their credentials are impeccable, and we believe that this federal case, as it relates to the San Diego police, will allow this issue to come forth again. We believe we have the strongest case yet with regard to providing that HIV is synthetic and has been produced by the United States and others. They have the cure. They have the cure. They have the cure sitting on this shit. Sultan Muhammad, do you think the program Global 2000 is used to complicity with the U.S. Special Virus Program? Dr. Graves. I believe that Global 2000 represents a shadow government where a few elitist white men in such organizations as the Trilateral Commission, Council of Foreign Relations, and even to some extent the Illuminati have made a plan by which 2 billion of the world's people will perish vis-a-vis these synthetic biological agents. We believe it is the underpinning of what I call the African Holocaust. All right. I also think it is reflected in the National Security Study Memorandum 200, which was drawn up by Henry Kissinger in 1974 and taken to the World Population Conference held in Bucharest, Romania. It was adopted and approved by many of the nations of the world, including some African puppet government dictators at that time. Told you, man, these Negroes that look like you, these puppets. The Global 2000 plan is a hideous plan that magnifies the Hitler and or Jewish Holocaust about 50% with respect to the number of people that have been planned for extermination. Much of that is the global plan. Much of that is the global plan and the King Alfred plan. But it was also drawn up in the U.S. Public Law 91213 that was signed on March 16th, 1970 by President Richard Nixon, which essence authorizes HIV/AIDS and the development of HIV/AIDS as a matter of public law of the United States of America. Now, the United States of America is a corporation, okay? Sultan Muhammad. I want to go back to the federal court case, which was refused by the Supreme Court without comment. Dr. Graves. The case was in 2000. Was a full disclosure as it relates to the Freedom of Information Act. Now, if folks don't understand full disclosure, remember I told you that anytime you're going to enter into any contract, you're supposed to get full disclosure. Full disclosure is when they have to break down every word on the contract and its legal meaning. Full disclosure means they have to tell you every single thing about the contract. Okay? Can't hide anything from you. That's full disclosure. So it says here, in May of 2000, it was, okay, Dr. Graves. The case in 2000 was a full disclosure as it relates to the Freedom of Information Act. We were seeking full disclosure of the special virus program vis-a-vis the courts. They were represented by the flowchart document as well as a May 15, 2000 letter from Dr. Victoria Cargill, the medical officer of the Office of AIDS Research of the National Institute of Health. Dr. Cargill declared it the letter that the flow chart is declared in the letter that the flow chart is the flow chart of the human immune deficiency virus. Here we have an official document from the United States saying the same thing. All right. I'm going to give you guys this link so that you guys can read the rest of that article. One sec. Okay. Let's see if we got it here. In fact, I'm gonna put the link in the description box of the video. All right, that's when I'm gonna put the link. I'm gonna put it in the description box of the video. Okay. Now let's get to our next article. So again, this is Boyd Graves displays. Let's give you a brief rundown on him. Boyd Graves displays the 1971 HIV flow chart after urging UN AIDS officials to provide oversight during the U.S. investigation into the missing operations of the mostly secret virus development program. U.S. specialist virus photo, courtesy of BoydGraves.com. So that's his website. His website is www.boydgraves.com. Okay. Let me give you the. I can get the link to the article right here. Give me 1 second, y'all. Get the link to the article. Can't make stuff up, man. Okay. There goes the link to the article in the chat. Okay. Okay. All right. Now let's go on to. Should we go to the video? Let's go on to this. I think I have another video to play for you guys. Let's see. 1 second, y'all. Say fair use, fair use, fair use. They gonna let this load real slow. Okay. Let's play this.
The weapons race in America make the Soviet efforts pale by comparison. Here to prove it
Fair
are
use.
three of the most stunning and condemning documents in biological warfare history. First is a never declassified congressional record of 1969 showing the Department of Defense requested $10 million to...
Well, all right, so I can't. They won't let it load for me to read where the article, where this video is coming from.
Develop,
right.
Quote, synthetic biological agents for germ warfare, end quote, through the National Academy of Sciences, National Research Council, that is the NAS, NRC. That's nearly half of the amount of money given to all of biological weaponry that year. These New laboratory creations were descriptively and functionally identical to HIV/AIDS. Mind you, this was 15 years before the contested discovery of the AIDS virus by this man, Dr. Robert Gallo, who, as you will see in a minute, oversaw Litton Bionetics, the Army's 6th leading biological weapons contractor at that time. Bionetics also operated the entire administration of the National Cancer Institute's programs at Fort Detrick at that time as well. This private company was a medical subsidiary of the mega military weapons contractor called Litton Industries. Litton's president, Roy Ashe, was Nixon's alternate for the National Security Advisor post he gave to Kissinger. In consolation, the president made Ashe his White House chief of American business and industry. As Roy Ashe was joining the Nixon White House staff, Kissinger ordered Admiral Zumwalt of the Navy to do a reassessment of America's biological weapons capabilities.
Now, peep, right? So, Roy Ashe is Nixon's boy, right? Which his company is a company that they're saying that developed the HIV virus, right? So, peep. Now, it's no secret that throughout history that our people are the least insured people, okay? And then even we do have insurance, sometimes it's not even a good insurance because the high profile jobs with the great insurance, Caucasian folks was first come, first serve, right? So with us, it was to wipe us out. With them, it was to go down into their medical insurance pockets. Okay. Now, the reason being now it's making sense to why they keep throwing the case out of court every time Dr. Graves tried to bring up a court case about it, because these same organizations still exist today. Some of these people still exist today, and some of these people are children and grandchildren exist today, which still profited off of the genocide of our people. Okay.
The Navy has always been at the forefront of such things. Bioweapons were cheaper to make and could be made to target certain people, even certain ethnic groups. There is no doubt that Fort Detrick's sudden cancer focus was part of a greater depopulation plan. According to congressional records and his biographer, Time magazine's managing editor, Walter Isaacson, Kissinger selected the option presented by Admiral Zumwalt to develop AIDS-like and Ebola-like bioweapons, and the contract went to his White House colleague's company, Litton Bionetics. There is now no doubt that Dr. Gallo officiated the development of these AIDS complex viruses. His group at Bionetics combined leukemia, lymphoma, and sarcoma viruses from various species of animals nearly 15 years before he was credited by the Department of Health and Human Services for having discovered the cause of AIDS, a similar retrovirus. They said this would lead to a cure, an AIDS vaccine within 3 years. It never happened. I managed to catch up to Dr. Gallo at the 11th International Conference on AIDS in Vancouver in 1997. I asked him if he was concerned that some of his experiments might have given rise to the AIDS virus or AIDS virus relatives that might have contaminated monkeys and chimpanzees shipped by Litton to the Merck's vaccine division in New York for the production of the earliest hepatitis B vaccines. Here is the exchange Dr. Gallo eventually apologized to me for. He was obviously aggravated.
Every time I see this, it just gets so crazy to
early
me.
Experiments in taking simian virus 40 in the presence of simian foamy retroviruses and recombining them with cat leukemia and chicken leukemia sarcoma viruses might have given rise to HIV or its relatives following their culture in human tissues, and that these mutants could have contaminated some live viral vaccines produced in contaminated monkeys and chimps supplied to vaccine manufacturers through your affiliates at Litton Bionetics.
Quick Frankly, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I'll cite your paper, Dr. Gallo.
If you can, you've got a paper. You've got a paper that I don't know I ever published.
Okay.
I sure like you to cite it. Would you begin?
I'd be happy to. National Academy of Sciences, 1970, Gallo et al. It was an oral presentation that you presented before NATO and NATO audiences in Mol, Belgium. You published it. It's in the National Academy of Sciences. I'd be happy to show you the paper.
Stop. I mean, this is beyond asinine. In Mol, Belgium, my first trip to Europe, so I can remember it, a NATO meeting did take place. NATO meetings fund all scientific meetings all over the world, even East-West at that time. Biologic meetings, scientific chemistry meetings, all kinds of meetings about motherhood, fatherhood, everything. And when I talked about in Mol, Belgium, was in the 1960s, long before gene cloning took place, before I ever worked in virology. What I talked about was cellular transfer RNA. Okay?
You heard what he said? What he was working on was in the 60s, long before gene cloning took place, right? Now, I think this interview here was in the 70s. Now, this is to show you also that they have when they're getting your genetics from these doctors' offices, when you're donating blood, that they can replicate back your genetics. They can replicate back your blood cells. They can replicate back your cells. Okay? That's also something that I think some people missed when they were listening to this the first couple times. Like, he's letting y'all know that we can replicate. So if you, the Negro, builds up a stronger immunity or it builds up a stronger immune system to the virus, they have the capability to clone your genetics, your cells, and store it and experiment on it over and over and over again to know how to break you down. Okay?
And that's Mol, Belgium. Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, an SV40. I never published a paper in my life. An SV40, except the transfer RNA species in SV40 transformed hamster cells compared to non-transformed cells as a control. You've got pineapples, kiwis, grapes, and cherries mixed in with some other tutti frutti. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
And excuse me.
I'm a little bit tired of this kind of nonsense.
Okay. And Gallo, Sarin et al. Were Lytton Bionetics researchers were your co-authors, in which you combined cat leukemia and chicken sarcoma viruses to create to evaluate the leukemia sarcoma complex models.
Really smart. Yes, we did. Everything was created by us, working in the laboratory. Look, just for those with some little bit of understanding of this, who care about this kind of idea. I've had a lot of things said, but I've never had anything quite like that one. There were people who thought and made postulations that, and it was not actually directed at me. This is a good one, a new one, but that HIV could have been created in laboratory experiments. There are two answers to that are definitive, conclusive, that no scientist could have deliberately created them unless he was a super genius and 10 years ahead of his time. The AIDS virus definitively existed long before molecular cloning. That's point one. Point two, we know the full sequence, the genome of HIV. It was published by our lab in 1985, by a group from Paris around the same time. The genome has no homology to any known existing virus in the world, except SIV, discovered after it. Has nothing to do with cats, has nothing to do with chicken sarcoma viruses. SV40 is a DNA virus that comes from little animals that can transform cells in culture, has no sequences in HIV. Further, we never worked with SV40 with those viruses together. And if we did, the whole thing would be irrelevant. And I think you need to begin with Biology 101 high school, okay?
These documents, including the U.S. government contracts, best explain how AIDS emerged on two far-removed continents in Black Africans and gay New Yorkers by 1978.
Well, I'll tell you. Now, Remember, this is the time where they were ramping up the land theft in Africa, right? They were ramping up the land theft in Africa, ramping it up, ramping it up. They were going out there, just slaughtering it, taking land. The thing now is they thought they were going to wipe out the world's populations of Negroes in Africa. It didn't work because what's going on now is the Africans are not intermixing with them like how they thought they would have them intermix with them. They're going back to being more tribal, which means more segregation. They're taking back their lands, which was taken from them. Okay, they're taking back their lands. They're distributing the land amongst their brothers and sisters. So nothing has been going the way how these people wanted it. But again, because the people of the Americas are considered to be the most submissive, docile people, they're now coming over here, burning you out. As you can see, still to this very day in California, they still having these fires going on, and people are still buying it that these are just forest fires that's just happening, which is just stupid. No one is pressing Congress or the Senate for them to stop this shit. No one is doing it. Until you come out in numbers and let, and in my opinion, until you come out in numbers to let people know that you know what they're doing now, you're not going to take the shit anymore, they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. So now you see them burning out all sorts of lands, and the lands that they burning are the most fertile land. They went for the Brazilian rainforest, they burned that down. They still burning down California. They burned down parts of Louisiana. Was it what last year? The most fertile lands they're going for. So it hasn't been working how they wanted it to work. So now on this side, they're pushing the homosexual agenda heavy because homosexuality in the Americas was the leading cause of AIDS. Gay people was the most at risk to capture HIV in America. Okay. This is why you see them pushing certain agenda, how they're pushing these agenda. Okay. Let's get out of here. 1 second, y'all. One more thing, other stuff to pull up. We're going to do this like a few parts type of a thing. All right. Let me see. Where is patient 0? Patient 0. Yes, patient hope. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to find patient 0. Like I'm not really seeing it. Patient hope, the Carib. Yeah, we have another video here to play anyway. Still got another video to play. So I just finished playing this one. I'm gonna play this one here. See this one. Come on. One second, y'all. Okay. Let's see. Waiting for this to load up. Give 1 second. Of course. Fair use, fair use, fair use. This is from Public Lecture HIV/AIDS Research.
Okay, I think it's
This is from Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. Fair use. We're gonna play like the first 5 minutes of this.
hello. It's on. Okay, I think we'll have to start because we have quite a tight schedule. So I would like to welcome everybody to this last and also public session of a very productive and informative meeting that we've had for the last couple of days on HIV/AIDS research, its history and future. So I will chair this last session together with Dr. Warner Green from San Francisco. My name is Anders Wahlne. I'm from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. So this first hour we will have 3 presentations given by John Cohen, who is a journalist and science writer, by Staffan Hildebrand, who is a Swedish documentary filmmaker, and by Victoria Hardner, who is a historian from NIH. So first I then welcome John Cohen. He is a science writer and reporter, as I said. He specializes in medicine and is widely known for coverage of HIV and AIDS. Mr. Cohen has written 4 non-fiction books on scientific topics and is widely published in magazines. He has been a reporter for Science since 1990. Many other publications. So please, John.
Thank you, Andrew. Should I put on the lav? Yeah. Thank you for that very nice introduction. I have 20 minutes, so I'm going to race through my slides. If you've been at the meeting, you'll see that my talk is very different from everything that's been presented. And if you haven't, it's fine, and you don't need to know anything about HIV to follow what I'm going to talk about. This is a word cloud I made of words that I've learned over the years covering HIV. I first wrote about HIV in 1986. I was interviewed on Fresh Air in 2004 by Dave Davies, who was sitting in for Terry Gross. And before we went on the air, he asked me, how should I introduce you? And I said, I'm an AIDS reporter. And he started laughing. And he said, what's that? Really? You call yourself an AIDS reporter? And his question really struck me because I had never thought twice about it for many years. And there used to be a lot of people who covered the epidemic. From that first era, I'm kind of the last one standing. And why have I covered it this long? I asked myself that question. And it's because it's the most fascinating story for a journalist that I could possibly imagine. It touches every aspect of science, every aspect of society, and it has taken me to about 50 countries. And much of what I'm going to show you is based on my travels and what I've seen, but much of it is simply about the journalism that has occurred and the main stories that have attracted journalists. You'll find there's a theme in journalism that I think many people misunderstand, and it's conflict. Conflict drives narratives. It's used in Shakespeare, it's used in poetry, and it's also in journalism. And conflict is not negative. It's things you don't know. It's ideas hitting each other, and sometimes it is controversy and scandal. This is the first report, which many people have shown at this meeting, of AIDS. And what many people haven't shown is that it was buried in the MMWR. The type 4 dengue infection in US travelers to the Caribbean took precedence. I think that's interesting. And the word homosexual, I learned at this meeting, was taken off the title. This is the first day that the MMWR appears. The story does.
Now, there was, what is it? Let me see if I could pull it up. Let's see. Back it up a little bit. I want to see. I don't remember if it's here or if it's further down in this. Give me a second here.
It's things you don't know. It's ideas hitting each other.
Oh yeah. So also when he says that the homosexual title was taken off of the thing, it's a cover up. that's another part of the cover up, okay? Because again, they want to make it seem like also that community has nothing to do with the spreading of the disease, but it's widely more so spread throughout that community than any other community. Okay? So that's also a part of the cover up.
And sometimes it is controversy and scandal. This is the first report, which many people have shown at this meeting, of AIDS. And what many people haven't shown is that it was buried in the MMWR. The type 4 dengue infection in U.S. travelers to the Caribbean took precedence.
And what they said, the type 4 dengue infection in U.S. travelers going into the Caribbean. So again, island folks didn't have AIDS at one point. Never, it wasn't there up until the 1990s. AIDS wasn't in the islands at that point like that. Okay, it wasn't until 1981 when they weaponized it and was pushing it within the Negroid communities here on the mainland, preferably down in the South, in the big cities like New York, LA. I'm not sure Chicago. I know Detroit. You know, when they was widely pushing it here within our community, right during the crack epidemic. Okay. And I believe those two went hand in hand together. So they had to find ways to make sure that it spread. So what did they do? You know, when they say junkies share needles and one junkie will pass on HIV to the other, right? So they gave junkies infected drugs, needles. Okay. So when they contracted HIV as being junkies and don't know it, now it's in their blood and they're passing it on to other folks. Okay. Okay. Try to label Haitians were the carriers of it. Yeah, I mean they'll do that. They'll pass it on. It's like the Zika virus. There's no outbreak of the Zika virus in majority of the islands that they talk about. Oh, there's an outbreak of Zika. It's all bullshit. The locals down there will tell you we don't have none of that. That's mainstream media bullshit. Okay, because they have their eyes set on the islands. They feel like within the mainland, they already have their agents within the communities here, within, again, the pro-Black community. The whole Pan-African shit is a corporate created construct, right? All these so-called civil rights or fight for your rights Negro organizations that is on Dun and Bradstreet are all working for the corporate construct. So they know that they have these agents out there that has millions of the ears of they know that they have these organizations out there that has millions of the ears of the American Negro, right, to lead them astray. So they're not too worried about, you know, the Northern American territory off the mainland. What they're trying to get now is the islands. That's what they're trying to get now. Okay. This is why it's important that we start spreading this information here on the northern territory of the mainland and make sure that it reaches the islands, because again, that military hospital ship going around, no one knows what it's giving the people. You can't trust the same people that gives you the disease and then try to give you a temporary cure or a temporary, it's not even called a temporary cure. Give you something that eases up the symptoms temporarily, right? The same people that's making you sick is not going to give you the cure. They're not, because it's big money business to keep you sick than to cure you. Okay. Let's keep going.
I think that's interesting. And the word homosexual, I learned at this meeting, was taken off the title. This is the first day that the MMWR appears. The story does not appear in major newspapers. It is not in the New York Times. It's not in the Washington Post. This is from the Santa Cruz Sentinel. pneumonia strain linked to homosexual lifestyle. That's a wire story from AP. This is the first New York Times story, July 3rd, 1981, when there's a second report in MMWR about a rare cancer seen in 41 homosexuals. So now we've gone from pneumonia to cancer.
President have any reaction to the announcement of the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta that AIDS is now an epidemic, over 600 cases, and over a third of them are died. It's known as gay plague. No, it is. I mean, it's a pretty serious thing that 1 in every 3 people that get this have died, and I wonder if the president is aware of it.
I don't have it. Are you? Do you?
You don't have it. Well, I'm relieved to hear that, Larry.
You didn't answer my question. How do you know?
Does the president, in other words, the White House looks on this as a great joke.
No, I don't know anything about it, Lester.
I dug up the old transcripts from 3 of the first presidential press conferences about AIDS. They're all equally repulsive. That's how the federal government at the highest level responded to the epidemic when it surfaced. That's Larry Speaks, who's speaking for President Ronald Reagan. This is the first report of the virus being isolated. That's Françoise Barré-Sinousset, who's here. This appeared in Science in May of 1983. And I didn't have access to the French media, so I don't know how much they reported this. This is a month later. It's the New York Native, which had a long campaign questioning whether HIV indeed was the cause of AIDS. African swine fever virus was one of many possibilities that the New York Native argued was causing the epidemic. This is the...
You notice they said the New York Native, right? So, you know, Native for them is what we'll say for us. It will say original for us, right? So when they're saying Native, they're still referring back to you, the original American, the Negro of America, okay? So, you know, this is crazy because they're even letting you know, because when they're using the word the New York Native, they're not talking about no New York Native American. They talk about New York is predominantly Negro people, especially New York City. It's predominantly Negro people. Now it's becoming a melting pot because they're bringing in more and more of other species of people to create a melting pot. Okay, but back then, New York was Negroid people. All right. And notice he separated the African from the native New Yorker. Okay. Not the same people.
First major U.S. magazine cover that I could find about the epidemic. Note that it's mysterious and deadly. Those are 2 key words for journalists that we use again and again when outbreaks and epidemics surface. Mysterious and deadly drives many stories, including Zika and microcephaly. Why is Ebola exploding in West Africa? Those are things that attract a lot of attention. This is the most famous scientific press conference of all time, I believe, on April 23rd, 1984. The day before it occurs, the New York Times runs a story that says that the French have discovered the cause of AIDS.
Oh, so Peep, right? Remember when they was trying to spread Ebola over here? And that they gave it to the African guy before he came. They gave it to him when he came here. They gave him Ebola, and he didn't last very long. He died within like a week, right? He died. He suffered and died. Then they gave it to the American Indian nurse, the Negro nurse. She contacted it, and she had a stronger withstanding of the virus than the African guy. And right around that same time when she got it, a Caucasian nurse had it, and she was cured of the disease completely. But then they try to say that they didn't have the cure for the original American female, the Negroid female. That they said the genetics were different genetics and they couldn't cure her. They said that was the reason why they couldn't cure the African guy, because the genetics between the Caucasian and the African guy was different, which wasn't true. The genetics between the Caucasian and the African and the dark-skinned African are same. They have the same genetics. They're the same people. They came from the same landmass. The sister had a more of a stronger buildup to the Ebola virus, because our people naturally have a stronger defense against diseases or viruses or any form of chemical attack when these people put it out there against us. All right. So they were also experimenting on her to see how long she could withstand it. That's why they wasn't rushing to go give her the cure like how they rushed to give the Caucasian doctor, male and female doctors, the cures when they got it. As soon as they got it, they flew them back to the States, and the very next day they gave them the cure. But this sister they had, she was there for like that, about 2 weeks before she got the cure. Right? We have a stronger immune system than they do. And they realize it's because of the nutrients that comes from the land. Okay?
Then there's a press conference at which Bob Gallo, who's here and helped.
Wait. You said they're still using her cells now? Oh, wow. Wow.
Organized this meeting is with Margaret Heckler, the Secretary of Health and Human Services. She's made a goat of frequently for having said supposedly that there will be a vaccine in 2 years. That's not what she's seen ready for human testing within 2 years. An equally irresponsible statement, because it did create a false impression that this was going to be a chip shot. This was going to be simple. Edward Brent, who was there, the Assistant Secretary, did say there would be a vaccine on the market within a few years, but she didn't. Bob Gallo that day was said at the podium, there has never been any fights or controversies between us and a group of in France, which in retrospect proved not to be true. Randy Schultz, who published in The Band Played On in 1987, wrote about the before and after moment. He was writing about when AIDS came into everyone's life. Everyone had a before and after moment in the gay world, especially because their lives were ripped asunder by this epidemic. But there's also a before and after moment in the scientific world, and it's the day after this press conference when the practical solutions start moving forward. The scientific charge to develop a blood test and get it on the market, to develop drugs, to develop a vaccine, those are the after moments to me. It's after the cause is proven. The Wall Street Journal boldly says that there's a race to develop an AIDS vaccine. That was a myth. There never was a lot of industry interest in doing this. Companies came and went.
We're going to stop that right there. So there wasn't a race to develop a vaccine because they already have the cure. They've been had the cure. They've been had the cure and been sitting on the cure for a long time till this very present day right here. All right. We're going to move on to the next video. Which one is this? We'll close that out. There was a doc. I can't believe I don't have it. Why don't I have it? Let me see if this is it. Because there's a documentary that I had. Let's see if this is one. Give me 1 second, y'all. Let me just copy this stuff. About to share it with you guys. Did I say fair use? Fair use? Fair use. Takes so long to load. This is from Jenny Barakoff's channel.
It began among gays in America. Young men started falling sick, and nothing the doctors prescribed could stop them dying.
They had not been exposed to anything, any disease process or chemical that anyone felt was dangerous, and yet they were dead in their 20s and dead.
By the mid-80s, scientists knew it was serious. A virus in the blood called HIV, usually passed on during sex.
I've worked in really severe worldwide epidemics for 20 years. I have never seen an agent as dangerous as HIV.
There seemed no limit to the numbers who would die.
The numbers are numbing, staggering. Not in modern history have we seen such a sweeping plague.
Now, in the late 90s, AIDS is out of the headlines. Have we learned to live with it? Has it gone away? Or have we just got bored with the predictions of doom? Nearly 20 years on, no one is sure exactly where AIDS began. But this is one of the cities where it first flourished, San Francisco. It soon emerged that the new infection was spreading through the bathhouses. Dr. Selma Dritz was the doctor who sent people in to investigate.
They brought back reports that would have curled my hair if I hadn't already curled it. They weren't using the baths for bathing, believe me. There was a lot of sexual interaction. A nude man would be lying face down on a bed or a platform with an open can of Crisco next to him. And that was
So, Pete, right? There's another documentary that I forgot to save to show you guys. But these motherfuckers will know that they have AIDS, HIV, and still will go to these bathhouses. Like even in Europe, they will have the gay clubs, and their thing is, well, they're not going to use any condom because it will take their fun away. When they started realizing that they're now spreading AIDS in Europe, they didn't give a shit. They didn't care. They was like, oh, well, it's going to ruin our fun. We don't want to ruin our fun. So they will still go out there and have unprotected sex out there and still spread the virus. Willingly, knowingly. This is how nasty these bastards were.
and he took on all comers. Anything could be transmitted, and it was.
Today, sex is back in business, but in a different form. When the bathhouses were closed down in 1984, sex didn't stop. It just went underground, which the health authorities reckoned was even more dangerous. So they began encouraging sex clubs, which promoted safe sex. One of them, called Eros, is owned by Buzz Benz, who's HIV positive himself.
Due to the regulations from the San Francisco Department of Health, we can't
these
have
motherfuckers is nasty. He's still fucking even though he got AIDS.
Doors that close on them. That's a traditional bathhouse. We can't have those anymore. So what we have are semi-private areas where people can cruise each other, where they can flirt, and then they can find a little space to go together with each other.
So he's running a brothel.
Things I like about this room is that you can kind of appear and disappear, and you can look through slats and see what someone's doing and peek out and turn the corner. Safe sex supplies are everywhere in the...
So Pete, he's running a whorehouse for gays, right? That's pretty much what it is. It's a whorehouse for gay people. That's what he's running, okay? And these men come in there. They know that they have HIV. They know that they got AIDS, and they're not using protection.
These rooms, we have a dispenser here for water-based lubricant. We have condoms. We have latex gloves. There's paper towels, so that literally you are within arm's reach of safe sex supplies everywhere in the playrooms. We tell a customer what their rules are before they come in. They agree to the rules, and they are told that these rules will be enforced. And if we see unprotected anal intercourse going on in this facility, the customers are asked to leave. No question about it.
But San Francisco's approach is not typical. Other cities where the plague once flourished have taken a strong line against open sex.
In New York, we currently have Mayor Giuliani completely closing all the sex venues in the city of New York. It's just being stomped out. The city of Los Angeles attempted to do exactly the same thing. Generally, the attitude of the Department of Health has been either I'm going to ignore this situation because I can't deal with it, or we're going to close them down.
The assessment gays themselves make of the risk has changed. A survey found that even in San Francisco, unprotected sex was on the increase.
It is clear that one of the last things that...
Just to pause that. If any content creator out there ever got your video kicked off for nudity on YouTube, keep in mind, this is a YouTube channel playing this video that has nudity in it. Right? And this video got over 16,000 views. Let's keep going.
Gay men want to do in a sexual interaction is, first of all, reveal their HIV status. The second thing they want to do is that they don't want to do is to talk about the mechanics of how the sex is going to be. You know, you want it to be magic.
All over the world, the safe sex message has been wearing thin. London was never hit as badly as San Francisco, and in this gay club, wearing condoms is no longer a priority.
No, they should do, but they don't. No, they don't practice safe sex. Quite often I'm in sort of clubs where sex happens on the premises or in cruising areas. The number of people that sort of want to have unsafe sex is can be quite shocking, really.
I became positive at 21. I've been on the scene for 2 months. I think whether you're in a club or whether you're in a bed, kind of, there is that moment where it's, can I be bothered?
Like I said, nasty motherfuckers. And these are the same Europeans that's traveling all over the world, all over the Americas, having sex with the same little boys and little girls, raping them, these same pedophiles, raping them, and spreading the virus to these little boys and girls. Which then you have other older men and other older women that preys on those young children, that goes and prey on them and end up catching the virus their damn selves. Okay? It's like the dude, the Caucasian dude, European dude, that they caught that gave over 600 Negro females AIDS. On the age. They are all on the age young girls. What's his name? DJ Kid? DJ Kid. The police department knew about it for years. His next door neighbors knew about it. Everybody knew about it, and no one did anything about it until it hit the 600th victim. That's how long the police department knew about it. They didn't even deny that they didn't know. They knew. And they did nothing.
I really should, but this is amazing.
Masonic number 6.
The older guys that were getting AIDS, but the
younger guys thought that it's the older guys, if they stuck to their own age group, that they would be affected.
In 1986, the AIDS prevention campaign had been spearheaded by Dr. Michael Adler. Now he's worried.
There's no doubt that HIV/AIDS has gone off A, the political agenda, and B, the public's agenda, and also added to that the gay men's agenda. It is true that you're getting younger gay men who were not part of the gay scene at the start of the AIDS epidemic, who are saying, well, you know, people like Professor Adler are trying to spoil my fun.
The Terence Higgins Trust has recently commissioned a new commercial aimed at reminding gay men that even people in stable relationships can get HIV.
In this particular work we were developing, it was that fact that a high percentage of HIV occurs in relationships. It was actually the one nugget that kind of like really struck us as being unusual. And we felt that was a wider message that needed to be told, and the best way to do it was on television.
It's obviously sensual, but I don't think it's explicit in any way. And I think if somebody's going to be offended by that, then I think they're going to be offended by homosexuality anyway. I think gay men are so used to seeing HIV prevention work in the gay press, all the normal gay media, that to have it on a mainstream media, it's just like, it'll stop them dead in their tracks and go, oh my Lord.
Marcus Conant looked after the very first AIDS cases in San Francisco in 1980.
Young gay men today are not as careful as young gay men a decade ago. But it's not that they're slipping back. They're just becoming who the others were. The others became, the men a decade ago became so frightened watching their friends die literally on the sofa in the living room that they changed their behavior. But they didn't change it because it was a better place to be. They changed it because they were terrified. Now, with young people hearing that AIDS may not be a fatal disease if there's a treatment, they're not terrified.
That is the key. The safe sex habit is changing because the sense of doom that surrounded AIDS in the early days has gone.
Yo, peep this. Show y'all that I told y'all that. Watch this. Let's play this back out a little.
AIDS may not be a fatal disease if there's a treatment. They're not terrified.
That is the key. The safe sex habit is changing because the sense of doom that surrounded AIDS in the early days.
Pause that. Told you, these pedophile ass bastards. Look at the little young girl they have in the middle. Look at the little young girl they have in the middle. Look at that. You can't make this stuff up. When you see what's going on now today now the push of this whole transgender thing, the push off this same-sex parents thing is being pushed by the homosexual community. The whole pedophilia thing is being pushed by the homosexual community. Cut it out. It's being pushed by the homosexual community. And people can't say, no, it's not, because when you check out majority of the pedophiles out there, they've been molested by the same sex. When you check out majority of the pedophiles out there, right? So this is what people are not paying attention to. When you watch interviews of these pedophiles, they'll tell you that they were molested by the same sex. And this is how they became how they became. When you're watching interviews of homosexual males or female, they'll tell you they either was touched by a family member or they were molested by the same sex. This is how they became gay. And the folks who became, and a good portion of the pedophiles that are pedophiles now in prison, how they became gay and attracted to the same sex was because they were molested by the same sex. All right. So this is why now they're trying to consider pedophilia, pass the law to make pedophilia a disease. This is why they dropped the age limit in over about 18 states to 16 of the age of consent. 15 to 16 of the age of consent. There's a couple states. There's a couple states where it's been dropped to the age of 14 of the age of consent, right? which is ridiculous. With a parent can with the authorization from a parent in some of them, and some of these parents actually authorize it because some of these parents are also sick bastards or occult sick bastards. Okay, so we're not going to sit here and play this game here like we don't know where this whole gender misidentification is also coming from. It's coming from these folks because they're trying to legalize pedophilia. All these things that is attached to them. When they say, no, it's not coming from our community. Yes, it is. Yes, it is coming from their community. That's why you never see them come out in mass numbers and fight against pedophilia. They never do it. Let's keep going, though. Look at that.
It has gone. In the 80s, a diagnosis of HIV infection was like a sentence of death. There appeared to be no way of treating it.
What was remarkable was that when you got this disease, it looked like everybody died, and we never had a disease like that.
At one point, it was estimated that people were dying of AIDS around the world at a rate of 1 every 12 minutes. The demand for treatment grew intense. Sufferers formed an organization called Ggotop.
Act up, fight back, fight AIDS. Act up, fight back, fight AIDS.
What's happening now is that patients are desperate. They will take anything. They'll pop anything into their mouth now. This is the first case, I think, in history where the actual afflicted people are taking control, taking charge of the epidemic.
This is a story of a coalition.
After 10 years and $1 billion spent on research, rumors started circulating that a drug had been developed.
All right, so this is the part that I wanted you guys to hear.
Advanced stage of AIDS. It was called AZT. Pressure from Ggotop meant safety rules were relaxed to allow all HIV sufferers speedy access to the drug, but it was a false dawn. In London, Nick Maxwell's experience was typical. In 1994, he was put on an experimental course of AZT. It simply made him worse.
Whilst I was on that trial, my various symptoms were going up. I was getting chest infections every other week, skin problems, all sorts of bits and pieces.
Nick felt so ill he came off the trial. A detailed analysis in Britain and France later showed that AZT on its own was virtually useless.
So basically what they did was, this is show you that they have the cure, right? They have the cure. They got the cure. This is show you that they have the cure. Antidote cure, to me, it's the same thing, right? Just to show you that they have it. They gave him half of what he needed and left out a part of the component of what he needs, right? To show you how wicked they are. They knew that they weren't giving him the whole thing. They knew that when they were talking about, oh, there's a cure on the market, that they were only selling the people part of what it is, and they held back the other part because it wasn't curing the people and was even making them even more sick because it was missing another component. Wicked bastards. And this stuff this stuff is only sanctioned through your parliament, your members of Congress and the Senate and the president. This is how these things are sanctioned. This is how these things are passed. When they talk about the FDA, the CDC, all of these organizations have a role to play in all of this that you see that is being played out right here. That's going on. So when you talk about these people have your best interests at heart, no, they don't. You're an experiment, a guinea pig to them. Period. All right. So when they talk about they spoke about patient zero, which started off in San Francisco. So now you guys know now that when they're doing movies about patient zero, right, they're talking about the AIDS patient from San Francisco, right? So we're going to close off that one. We're going to go into this part here. Give me 1 second. Oh, no. We're on the right one. We're on the right one. Let's keep going. They're going to show you patient hope. That I call it patient hope. Watch.
It was typical of the disappointments that dogged the search for an effective treatment. Some combinations of drugs seemed to work for a while, but in the end, most patients relapsed and died. The big breakthrough was made in Philadelphia, at the laboratories of the Merck. The man behind it was a brilliant young scientist called Irving Siegel. He knew from other studies that an enzyme known as protease helped the virus to reproduce itself inside the cell. He reasoned that if the action of protease virus could be stopped in its tracks.
Those of us who were here at the time developed an almost immediate respect for Irving as an incredibly brilliant, but even more so, very driven individual.
In December 1988, Siegel was in London explaining his theory to British researchers. After his lecture, he was keen to get home early for Christmas, so he changed his flight and managed to get one of the last seats on Pan Am 103.
Last night, all 258 people on board a Pan Am jet en route to New York were killed.
Look at that.
Were American. Among them.
Look at that.
It was the typical reaction of disbelief and just wanting to sit down.
He went to Europe and told the overseers, "Hey, I found a way to block the virus that you created." Right? So they're like, oh, really? So you're cutting off our money flow? No money for us? We can't keep the people enslaved through disease. We can't control the population through disease. You're going to tell us that you created this thing to block the virus, and we wanted to continue to spread because we plan on using this virus as a war on the original Americans, on the Negro Americans, who are the original American Indians, to wipe out the Negro population, not just of the Americans, but of the world. And you created this thing? Oh, now we got to get rid of this dude right here. We got to get rid of him.
Not do anything for a
And they got rid of him.
Siegel's death set back progress, but colleagues took up the challenge to make his theory work. It was frustrating without him. The protease inhibitors did block the virus in patients, but only temporarily.
There was always a feeling, obviously, that a lot had been lost that was not replaceable. But then, as you can imagine, what it also did is that it certainly galvanized the effort, and his spirit certainly lived on.
Irving Siegel's protease inhibitors were being tested at the Thomas Jefferson Hospital. The breakthrough came when they tried using the protease inhibitor in combination with other drugs. Even AZT. To the team's excitement, one patient, number 142.
Who is that? Who is that? That's a Negro male. His genetics has more of a immune buildup than the Caucasians did. That's their patient hope, right?
Seemed to stay well.
Even with the more sensitive assay, had an initial decline in virus levels, just like all the other patients, but wasn't rebounding. In fact, it dropped below our ability to actually quantitate the virus, and it essentially disappeared.
So
what it told
this
us
is why
was that our goal was indeed
This is
possible
why-
to achieve. Because if you can achieve it in one patient, there's no reason why you can't achieve it in every patient.
By 1996, Merck scientists were ready to announce that they had at last made real progress. They arrived at the annual International AIDS Conference in Vancouver.
now this is why you're supposed to protect your children and keep your children away from them, because you see what happens when they did the studies on you with your genetics. They couldn't even find it anymore in him. That's how low it dropped because of your natural immune system, right? This is why these people push themselves up, or taking the children out of Haiti, taking the children from Jamaica. This is why hundreds of thousands of children go missing in the Americas every year. In the Bronx alone, in 1 year, 71,000 Negro children went children went missing in the Bronx alone. Not to count the missing children of DC, the 48,000 that went missing in about a month span in DC. This is why, because they realized the younger you are, is your body is unpolluted with the toxins that they pushed out there in the world. So the children have more of a bigger buildup, a stronger immune system than the adults. This is what they realized with the people of the Negroes of America. We're talking about Africa. We're talking about the Negroes of America. This is what they realized. They've never had that experience in any of the other patients, the Caucasian patients that they were testing. And I guarantee you, majority of the Negro patients that they tested and experimented on, this is the findings that they had. Hence, this is why during the Tuskegee Experiment, when they were injecting our people with syphilis, they realized, oh shit, they have such a strong buildup fighting back on the syphilis virus. More than their people did. Okay? Let me back that up a little bit. Back for y'all. Let's run it back.
Speedy access to the drug, but it was a false dawn. In London, Nick Maxwell's experience was typical. In 1994, he was put on an experimental course of AZT. It simply made him worse.
Whilst I was on that trial, my various symptoms were going up. I was getting chest infections every other week, skin problems, all sorts of bits and pieces.
Nick felt so ill he came off the trial. A detailed analysis in Britain and France later showed that AZT on its own was virtually useless. It was typical of the disappointments that dogged the search for an effective treatment. Some combinations of drugs seemed to work for a while, but in the end, most patients relapsed and died. The big breakthrough was made in Philadelphia, at the laboratories of the pharmaceutical giant, Merck. The man behind it was a brilliant young scientist called Irving Siegel. He knew from other studies.
So you know he was testing mostly Negro patients, right? Or people that they purposely infected with the disease. That's what it, because look, his stuff, the CDC is in what they call Black Atlanta. Merck is in Philly, that is predominantly Negro people. All of these facilities so far are in Negro-dominated areas.
Studies that an enzyme known as protease helped the virus to reproduce itself inside the cell. He reasoned that if the action of protease could be blocked, the virus could be stopped in its tracks.
Those of us who were here at the time developed an almost immediate respect for Irving. He was an incredibly brilliant, but even more so, very driven individual.
In December 1988, Siegel was in London explaining his theory to British researchers. After his lecture, he was keen to get home early for Christmas, so he changed his flight and managed to get one of the last seats on Pan Am 103.
Last night, all 258 people on board a Pan Am jet en route to New York were killed.
Most of the dead were American, among them Irving Siegel.
It was the typical reaction of disbelief and just wanting to sit down and not do anything for a while.
Siegel's death set back progress, but colleagues took up the challenge to make his theory work. It was frustrating without him. The protease inhibitors did block the virus in patients, but only temporarily.
So now, Pete, I don't want to hear people keep talking about, oh, this was a terrorist attack by folks from the Middle East or by the Muslims. It wasn't. It was these mega corporations trying to stop someone from finding the cure or coming up with an antidote for this virus that these people created. Okay? So they blew up an entire plane with over 200 people on it just to kill one man so that they could say that it was either an accidental explosion or a terrorist attack. All right?
There's always a feeling, obviously, that a lot had been lost that was not replaceable. But then, as you can imagine, what it also did is that it certainly galvanized the effort, and his spirit certainly lived on.
Irving Siegel's protease inhibitors were being tested at the Thomas Jefferson Hospital. The breakthrough came when they tried using the protease inhibitor in combination with other drugs, even AZT. To the team's excitement, one patient, number 142, seemed to stay well.
The breakthrough came with this patient right here.
Even with the more sensitive assay, had an
This
initial
seems to be a
decline in
Negro.
virus levels, just like all the other patients, but wasn't rebounding. In fact, it dropped below our ability to actually quantitate the virus, and it essentially disappeared. What it told us was that our goal was indeed possible to achieve, because if you can achieve it in one patient, there's no reason why you can't achieve it in every patient.
By 1996, Merck scientists were ready to announce that they had at last made real progress. They arrived at the annual International AIDS Conference in Vancouver, expecting a rapturous reception. Instead, they found angry members of Ggotop waiting for them.
It was pandemonium for a few minutes at the AIDS conference this evening when 6 to 10 members of ACT UP San Francisco came running at a panel of doctors, spraying them with strawberry.
The protesters greeted papers about the new treatment with skepticism and contempt. They were still bitter over the way AZT had dashed their hopes.
This conference is nothing but drug company hype, and it needs to be stopped. Ban combination therapy, stop protease inhibitors, ban AZT now.
But gradually it began to sink in that this was no AZT. Midway through the conference, the mood palpably changed.
I can remember sitting in the large conference hall and hearing presentations.
All right, we can stop that right there. Let me get to my other article. Let me get a seat. Let me grab a seat. All right. Pull this article up. That's not it. What the hell? Hold on, y'all. That's not the article. There you go. This is the article. Honor to everyone that's joining us. Everyone that's in the chat. Honor to you. Now, let me show y'all something. These predominantly Negro-dominated islands, this is the issue here. They have foreigners who they put in charge or who they have in charge of their most important areas that has to do with their well-being, right? And these foreigners don't give two shits about them. These foreigners is put in these positions to bring in the resources to wipe them out. But you can't tell island people that, because island people love their foreigners. They'll kill you for their foreigners. They love their foreigners. They literally would have to catch them red-handed before they believe shit that you say out your mouth against them, because they love their foreigners. Right? I mean, I'm not saying all, but some. So look at this dude right here. This dude right here, he's the Minister of Health and Wellness for the Jamaica Corporation. Him. Okay. Now, again, since people think Jamaica is a country and not a corporation, right? Which we know that it's not a country, it is a corporation underneath the it is a subsidiary of the United States Incorporated. We know that. These people right here know that. But if it was a country, he's obviously a foreigner, and he's not supposed to have the position of Minister of Health. He's not from that land. So he's not supposed to even have that position. And some ignorant person would say, well, his parents gave birth to him on the land. And, his mother and father probably might be from Europe or the Middle East, but he was born on the island. That still don't make him one of you. It still makes him a foreigner because his parents are foreigners. He's still not one of you. He is what his parents are. And if his parents are European, he's of European descent. He's European. Okay? He's a foreigner. He's not supposed to have that position. He's the one that allowed this ship to come to the island to start giving you guys God knows what. Oh, man. So here goes. This is a brief article here. It says Jamaicans are to benefit from the visit of the U.S. Navy hospital ship USNS Comfort, which will be anchored in Kingston to offer free medical service between October 28th and November 1st. They don't give free medical service here on the mainland. They're not coming down there to give you no form. Look, it's the simplest. It is very simple to fix the hospitals on Jamaica, on the island. It is very simple to fix the hospitals and upgrade them. They got a boatload of money from the Chinese. When the Chinese came and started building this infrastructure, when the Chinese came and built a road, the money that the Chinese are making, they're supposed to tax the Chinese, take that tax money, and put it back within the infrastructure. One of the first things that should have been developed was the hospitals to give you better medical treatment, better health treatment. Hire in more expertise doctors and import more expertise doctors to the island, or get better teachers to teach the medical students. They didn't do any of that. Your politicians pocketed the money and then brought in the United States military hospital ship to, in my opinion, infect you with some form of unknown type of disease, or give you an injection that further weakens your immune system to open you up to be infected later on throughout the years by some disease that they're probably planning on spreading onto your ass. They already spread AIDS down there already now. They already got cancer spreading wide down there now. Hey, who knows what else they coming with else? What other chemical attacks they coming with? And there's a war right now also on the islands right now, because these people need the resources of the islands, but they need to get rid of you, because for the most part, the intermixing of how they thought you were going to intermix, like how they thought the Africans was going to fully intermix, you're not intermixing like that with them. Thus, they're using reggae artists like Tom and Lee, Masika, Popcorn, all these other reggae artists to showcase the Caucasians in their video and to promote interracial relationships in their video and the homosexual relationships in their videos. to push that up on you to influence your young children. Not you, but your children. Because they need to wipe you out. This is about wiping out the dark and brown of you people. Brown paper bag effect. That's why every show that you watch now on TV, don't look at Power. Power is the biggest cooning ass show ever. 50 Cent got the biggest cooning show ever, which is Power. The Negro couple are fighting amongst each other. He's abusive to his ex-wife. The ex-wife and the son is selling drugs out of a daycare. The Negro female gets killed while she's with the Caucasian male. The Negro male that's married cheated on his wife with a Caucasian female. Look at Power. The other Negro female is looked upon as a hoe because she was married to a Caucasian male and was sleeping with the politician. Everything, all these shows don't portray you being together as a couple, as a strong-knit family. Don't portray you being the heroes of each other. And then it portrays now the male as being a simp. Because even in Power, Ghost is a simp. He's a simp-ass male. He's not even an alpha. Everybody runs over him. So they portray what they call the black male as being weak. This is so that the young females today who's growing up watching these movies, they mimic what they see on TV. So they're going to mimic the Negro males out there as being weak. What that's going to do, that's going to deter the Negro male from wanting to be with them, and he's going to want to be with the opposite species because he thinks, well, you know what, so on and so. And then it's the same vice versa when it comes to her. They don't want to see you together. It's called genetic genocide. It's to wipe you out. It's not that the world is running out of land. It's that them motherfuckers is running out of land and they need your land over here. Like I said, they try to take over the lands over there in the dark part of Africa. And now look what happened. Mugabe done set a precedent where Mugabe was like, fuck that. I'm taking back the lands that you took out here in Zimbabwe. I'm taking them shits back from you. You don't want to give them up. Bang, bang, bang. You're going to get shot down. They took the land. Now the African Union just voted to take back lands. All the lands that these Caucasian folks done stole from the Negro Africans. So where else do they have to run? They have nowhere to run to but here, where you're the most submissive ones over here because you still are fighting that you're Africans that came from off of some imaginary fucking slave ship from Africa when you ain't African. You are the original American. You are the American Indian. And you have 10 fucking tribes that agreed to sell out the other thousands of tribes to wipe out the other thousands of tribes, take away their inheritance, their land, and lock them into indentured servitude, which is slavery. This is why you're in the situation that we're in today. And those folks who know that they're a part of those tribes that still exist are the ones that came to be your fucking so-called master teachers and shit, teaching you this Afrocentric bullshit, while their paperwork is saying that they're fucking Indians. Nothing doing with African American or black on none of their goddamn paperwork. Because they took an oath and joined that Masonic order. This is facts. You're all over the place. It's time for people to wake up. You see this? So this ship was in Trinidad before it even came to Jamaica. This ship. So it's making rounds. It was in Trinidad. Best believe it's going to go to the Bahamas. Best believe it's going to go to Haiti. Best believe it's going to try to go to Cuba. They're not having that because Cuba got the best doctors in the world. So they ain't having that. And that's crazy because why would Jamaica need this ship here when Cuba is right next door? Cuba has the best doctors. Cuba still has the program where it tells you if you are a Negro from the Americas, you could go to Cuba and get free medical education. Free. They have that still. That goes for folks from the islands of the Americas. But you see, like the voicemail that Soul Flow played, right? Where the woman is saying that the ship left from America she separated Jamaica from America. And because these people are uneducated when it comes to the geographical location of where the island is, they don't know that their island is in the Americas. So they are Americans. They don't know that the United States and America is not the same thing. The United States is a corporation. America is North, South, and Central. Jamaica, Cuba, Hispaniola that they call Haiti is in North America. They don't know that the Caribbean Sea is North America. So when you tell someone, where's Jamaica? They say the Caribbean Sea. Where's the geographical location of the Caribbean Sea? What is the Caribbean Sea? It is a lagoon that is blocked off by a natural sandbar, meaning Jamaica is in a body of water that is surrounded by a sandbar in North America. It's North America. So you're an American. But they're not going to tell them that because this is stuff that they should have studied and learned. That's what they're saying to themselves, right? That it's not their fault they don't know the system that they live in, the structure of the system of how the world runs. It's not our responsibility to tell you how the world runs, that you need to learn this and so on and so and so, and then go fix your paperwork to say, instead of Jamaican, to say American. Or that you're from the American island of Examica or Zamica. It's the same spelling. Instead, they put the Rastafarian Masonic orders in your community. They put the Moorish order down there in your community. They put Islam down there in the community. They put these corporate Hebrew Israelites down there in the community. And notice I said corporate. They put these Pan-Africans down there in the community, and they all telling you that you came from Africa, which isn't true. These people are paid by the corporate world to tell you lies. Just be wary of this shit. If people's wondering why I titled my video the way I titled my video, that's to get around that whole, God damn it, I got too much stuff on my mind. But anyway, that's to get around the part of their censorship stuff, right? Because since they're going to block videos by certain words that it has, I will no longer put worded titles in my videos. I will just put letters and numbers. That gets around their algorithm. So now when my stuff is blocked, because folks is out there talking about, it's what you title your video. Now when I show you that my stuff is still being tampered with, is to show you no, that shit has nothing to do with it. They literally have people watching your shit, shutting your shit down. That's it. Internet net neutrality, yeah. Right? But yeah, you know what I mean? Like anyway, like these people don't. These are the same people that when Ebola was breaking out in Africa, they sent 3,000 soldiers instead of 3,000 doctors. They're not coming here to help you. The Red Cross, if you study the history of the Red Cross throughout history, right? It goes from being something honorable with the old order, then the old order was usurped. When the old order was usurped, the Red Cross is all about spreading diseases and domination. Because that Red Cross goes back to the Christian wars. And if you understand the Christian wars, these Christians was invading lands to slaughter people to steal their goddamn land. And when they couldn't win the physical warfare, they would spread the disease that they call the Black Plague on those people that they were trying to defeat. This is what they'll do. Now they want to conquer you in the islands. They're going to bring around their hospital ships. Why the fuck your government can't fix the hospitals? They have the resources. Don't believe that they're broke. They're not broke. Wake up. Stop letting these people inject you. Stop letting these people inject your babies. Stop letting them try to... If someone has to force you to go get an injection, you know there's something wrong right there. Okay? And that also is a criminal offense. They can't force you to desecrate your own property. Your body is your property. Your private property. It's not open to the public. Man, people just need to wake up. People need to wake up. Like I said, get your affairs together, get your affairs in order. The only way to beat what's going on out here is to set good examples for your children in the home. Fathers, be the best fathers you can. And be the role models to your children that the best role model to your children than anybody else in any television show could portray. Mothers, be the best mothers you can. Be the best role models to your children that any television show can portray. Folks who are in heterosexual relationships and marriages, show what a heterosexual relationship and a marriage is. If your child is growing up in this world today, you teach your child that there's a big difference between a boy and a girl. If you find out that they're teaching your children in school that there's no such thing as gender, you go up there and you protest that shit. And you let your child see that you're against it. You do it in front of your child because it has to stick with your child. This is not how these other females or these other homosexual dudes are raising these little boys and girls to believe that there's no such thing as sex. The opposite sex, there's no such thing. That's brainwashing. That's crazy. That's crazy. These people realize upon doing these trials with the Tuskegee Experiment, you see, these people was experimenting to cure their leprosy. They needed a resistance against the sun. That's why I told you guys before to watch Caligula. Look at the first Caesar in Caligula, how his skin was all burnt off and all that. That was leprosy due to that sun. That sun was eating them up. When you see that they could withstand the sun now today, that's because they've been harvesting you. Period. So the experiments on you has been to see how long could you withstand, to see how strong is your body's resistance so that they can be able to inherit that from you, whether it be through sexual procreation, right? Or whether it means to harvest certain cells from your body, especially like with Henrietta Lacks, with the immortal gene. The fact that they found that the American Negro male Y chromosome is not the same as the African male Y chromosome. It's totally different. More ancient. These are the things people need to start paying attention to. They need your genetics to fix their inferiority. Okay? They need that from you. Because you are the land and the land is you. I'm telling y'all, man, this is not a joke. This is not a game out here. Right? Make sure that y'all get your priorities in order. Make sure that y'all got your paperwork in order. Right? Because people be like, well, paperwork, again, you don't have a standing army. You don't have that. And even when you see like people like Fidel that did their thing over there in Cuba and stuff, those dudes had documentations that they also placed on the public record and then did their thing. Okay, so that he knows that once he did his thing, his government will still be recognized with most of the countries out there. And the ones that didn't want to recognize him, then oh well. As long as he had a few countries that recognize his government and he can do fair trade with, then that's what's up. But these are the things to get ready to prepare yourself, right? Because you're going to start it off now so that your children could improve on it for their children. And by the time like it's not going to happen in our generation. Okay? We could only lay the foundation for our children and teach them how to build and grow generational wealth. And I heard Kanye West said something the other day that he just stopped because our people don't support each other. We'd rather support foreigners. We'd rather support the foreigners than we support each other when it comes to business. And that's a fact that he was speaking on. The only part I disagreed with him was when he said America is for sale. America is not for sale. The United States corporation is for sale. See, when he's telling you that he's a free man, he's letting you know that he came up out of the jurisdiction of the corporate entity, right? But he ain't free because he's a Masonic puppet. He's a pawn. He still took an oath. So he's not a free man. He's still somebody's bottom bitch. Okay? But you can be free by learning the information that you need to learn and by placing your documents on the public record to let it be known of who you are. Right? Like it's man, look, man. It's preparations to be done. Okay? There's preparations to be done. Like I said, the only part I agreed with him is when he said that we don't support each other. We don't. That's a fact. We don't support each other when it comes to businesses. We more envy each other than wanting to support each other. And then we have the nerve at the end of the day to complain that we don't have jobs. But the peoples that you're supposed to support to help them build their businesses, to hire more of our people, to give them jobs, you're not supporting them. Right? Like for instance, you know how many people come in and is telling me that they want me to do a custom-made shirt specifically for them. That's not good for business. If the like my Teespring store is I created it as business, right? I created it to be a business, to be able to save up, to open up a store, to hire more of our people that need jobs, right? That is my dream. That is my goal. That's what I'm pushing towards. If I went and I did custom-made shirts specifically for individuals out there, I wouldn't make the sales that I need to make to pay my employees. Then I would have to then skyrocket the price on these shirts. So if the shirt was $20, I would have to then skyrocket the price up to $60 to you. Then you're going to complain, oh, this shit is too expensive. But you don't see our people going into Target, Macy's, JCPenney, and saying, yo, custom make me this, and then I'll cop something from you. You don't see them saying that. They go in there, they see something in JCPenney or Target, and they buy it. That's real. So I agree with Kanye when he states that part of our people not supporting each other. It's true. So when he goes to the white man, y'all can't complain. You cannot complain. Right? Like you see over there in Africa, there's a town in Africa where they stopped buying foreign cars. One of their young men they came together and helped one of their young men over there built a factory, and he's making his own cars, and that's the cars that the entire community bought. They bought cars from him to where now his cars are being sold international now, that Africans all over the world order a car from him and have it delivered to whatever country or state that they are in. That's support. The American Negro, we don't support each other how we're supposed to. But that is what it is. But anyway, y'all, I'm about to get up out of here. I'm going to put the links to the videos and articles in the description box. Let me show y'all where the description box is so that some of y'all won't get lost when I do it. Let me see if I can pull it up. Give me a second. Come on. Where is the video? Okay, should be coming up now. All right, that's whole flow stuff. All right, let me just type in this. Let me pull up my own video and then get to it. I'll wait till it's load up a little. I'll wait till it load. God damn it. But yeah, so I'm going to put the link. The link.
Remember, I think this study went on for.
I'm going to put the links within the description box. All right. Let's back up. I'm going to show you guys the description. This might be it right here. Okay, this is it. This is it. All right, so we're going to wait for it to load up. Yeah, like I seen went to the store. I went to the store the other day, right around by me, and there's a youngster that also does designs, right? But he make he stitch and sew his clothes from scratch, right? Like custom make all his own shit. And I seen his stuff. His stuff is great. His stuff is great, right? Oh, they're gonna blur the. Oh wow! So I'm coming back to the playback here, and it's blurred. They blurred the channel. Let's see. Yep, they blurred it. They turned it down to 144. That is Google doing that. It's supposed to be at 720p. But on my phone, it's clear as shit. But anyway, so he's got a fashion show coming. So, and he looked. I don't know if it was his friend, and he was like, "You pay that pants right there better than the pants you got on." Which was true. He was like, "Why don't you just?" He said, "Why don't you just next time give me that 400 pants that fits you and everything? That's your size, all that." And the dude was like, "You know what I mean? When your stuff starts, when his." Yeah, I can't. Hold on, let me see. I don't know why. I'm still in the StreamYard. Hold on. All right. Could y'all hear me now? No, it's supposed to be on. Y'all can hear me now? All right. Okay. So I was saying that there was a youngster that makes his own clothing, right? And he does fashion shows. He got another fashion show coming up in New York, a real big event, right? It's like some of the folks, they don't go to his stuff, so they don't know how big it's becoming, right? But it was wearing, I think this is Homeboy. It's a $400 pants. He's one of his custom made from scratch. You know what I mean? He sewed his stuff together. And everybody loves his pants. Everybody loved the pants that he has on. So he says to the Homeboy, like, he was like, yo, you paid $400 for that. Look at this, look at my stuff. My stuff. Why don't you should have gave me that? You could give me that $400 next time. When you start talking out your stuff, when his stuff starts popping. That's crazy. Anywho. All right, so I'm going to put the links to all the articles, all the videos. This is the description box here. Okay, so I'm going to add them to these right here in the description box. Like I said, this is my so anyone that is not following me on D Live, click on this link here, sign up for D Live, and then hit follow. You can also download the D Live app if you have a mobile device. All right. Anyone that's looking for stuff, Discord group, so you could join the Discord. This is the Discord here. Again, this is the description box right here. This is the Teespring store here. Playing and the stuff. Yeah. I messing with the they're messing with the connect. They're messing with the feed, right? So it's not a coincidence that they started messing with the feed at the end when I'm about to my stuff. So you know that's what that is. Okay. But that said, I'm going to put to all the videos. This is the description box below the video. Then I'm gonna put it here in the store link. Again, if you're not following me on D Live, this is the D Live link here. Click on the D Live link. Sign up for D. Follow me on D Live. This is the Discord right here. Join the Discord group. There's a lot of information that's shared within the Discord group for full information. All right. And again, I tell folks when you receive certain information, make sure you do your research, research what it is that you are looking at, the information at, okay? And make sure that you have an understanding of the information, because not every information goes for everyone has different situations, okay? The link to the Teespring Teespring store is here, so I'm going to drop the other links right below the link to the Teespring store. All right. And then I'll also at the top of the comment section, which will be, where's my comment section? Okay, so which will be here. I'll pin it also here in the top of the comment section right here. Being said, y'all, about to get out of here. I'll go this pounder. I got a headache. Right here, I'll say to you, road travel safe. I push towards you and your loved ones and everything and everyone that you hold positive around you. Tell everyone, man, just stay safe, stay positive. And stay productive. All right. And again, the young ones, they look up, be the role models that the young ones out there need to act on streams. The weekend was lit. So I know why I was just having some family. But all right, y'all, just stay out of here. Enjoy.